living with La Republique for the past 56 years, they knew that they would never succeed to get their liberations without a war. And that is why the Amazonian War of Independence. And so therefore, I am assured the people in Ground Zero that we can never, in any circumstances, allow our nation being destabilized by the neighboring country like the Republic. Many strong nations on this planet fought similar war. We are not the first to fight war for liberations. We are neither the second to fight war for liberations. We are fighting war because inequality, just like the Germans fought against the French, they fought Austro-Prussian War, they fought the series of war that the Germans fought against their own sovereign identity. And after the defeat, the final battle was the Franco-German War of Independence. And so the war was a rapid victory for the people of Germany. And so therefore, the people of Southern Cameroon is not exceptions. And therefore, we are reminding the world, we're reminding the German, we're reminding the France, we're reminding the Western allies that the people of Southern Cameroon has come to a point where they had to let go the relationship that existed with La Republique du Cameroun. Let's look at other top officials in this continual ongoing atrocity in Southern Cameroon. These are citizens of Southern Cameroon. You can see this. These are outrageous that is being carried out by La Republique du Cameroun instigations in Southern Cameroon territory. Our people should have the right to question the relationship that existed between us and the people of the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. And you can watch this and you see how our citizens undergoing torture in this era of the advanced society. And it is quite amazing that though we are speaking, the world community remain adamantly silent. Let's look more about ongoing this atrocity. And many leaders have spoken. This is one of our brothers that were tortured by the outrageous gendarmerie of the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. You can listen. That is one of our brothers that are being tortured by the gendarmerie of the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. It is quite amazing. Although when we speak, people say, no, we have the right to take up arms, because when we see our brothers tortured in this habit, then you have the right to question what relationship do we exist with La Republique. You can hear the torture at the heart of his voice. This is the series of what made news in Southern Cameroon territory. Let's look at who actually this is Paul Biya dictatorship. Is very smart. He bribed every individual that have stand up in advanced nation. That is the human right leader at the United Nations. He traveled to the neighboring country, La Republique, and that is the person he's meeting. And as soon as any of these high personalities or high profile individual arrive in La Republique, they will immediately be corrupted. And once they return, their language change and they speak the same language of corruptions. That is the thing that the world community doesn't speak about, because we are the third world country. And since they are the third world country, it doesn't matter to the national community to speak or to stand up and say no. But when it comes to, in terms of the United Nations, it's for the interest of the great majority and those with the high developed nations. He doesn't care about those other smaller nations. And so that is why when they stood up and that they can kick against the corruptions, unfortunately, that is the era we live in. That is the world we live in. That is the US, that is the human rights representative at the United Nations. That is her. She spoke about, as soon as she arrived, she was immediately corrupt. And as soon as she returns here in the United States, she was silent. And no voice can be heard anywhere. This is the world we live in. And that we must stand and fight for our liberations. Let's look more on these high-profile corruption officials that travel to Cameroon. You can see, and that is the continue. That is still some of the high profile. Here again, that is the United Nations Secretary General. That's supposed to be an umpire to look about free nations around the world. And yet, the people of Southern Cameroon is a member of the United Nations Security Council. They have never been decolonized. They have never been decolonized, despite the fact that it required that all those nations that were under belong to the nation, the colonial masters should be given their prior independence. The British did not. And therefore, this is the United Nations Secretary General, the most high-profile corrupted officials, and that is him meeting Paul Biya. And as soon as he returned, the language changed, the language of corruptions. That is the world we live in. And how can we change in an era where people of the minor society are being brutally murdered indiscriminately around the world? Because corrupted officials rely on these corrupted leaders' dictatorship so that they care more of their personal interests rather than the interest in which the office was founded. Imagine that the leaders who fought for the United Nations formations, imagine that they are here today. One of them as William Churchill, the British Prime Minister. Those are the people that fought for the formation and the United States government, for the creation of the United Nations. Today, it is a hazard environment, the United Nations. It's a seriously hazard environment led by the most world-corrupted officials, as you can see. And each time they travel, they came back with, they start speaking the language of corruptions. That is why I am bringing this attention, that the people of Southern Cameroon must stand for their freedom. They must fight and liberate, because if they deserve that, something can come out from the United Nations. When corruption becomes the master planning, it is often difficult to settle those. So let's look at more. The most difficult of it is the United States representative. That is the United States Secretary for African Affairs. Is still in line of those corruption that is going on. I can imagine that an Undersecretary for African Affairs traveled and came back. As soon as he arrived here, his mouth was shut. He became voiceless and he can't even speak up. He can never speak and he remains silent. And when they asked him by the US Senate and the US Congress, he forcefully assumed that the people of Southern Cameroon believe in Camerooners. That is a wrong assessment he made. And I can imagine and having an Under-Secretary for African Affairs that lacked the knowledge of the demand of the people and stand as a liaison between the United States government and the branch of the United States government. He stands as a branch of the United States government and the rest of the other African nations to which his office is highly regarded. But when he stood in front of all those branches of the United States government and described, say, the people of Southern Cameroon Ambazonia believe in Cameroonness. That is a wrong, miscalculated judgment, not only from the U.S. high-profile officials, but wrong miscalculation and wrong analysis presented to the high level of different government of these wonderful nations. I myself and the rest of those citizens of Southern Cameroon does not have any acceptable means recognize themselves as Camerooners. And that is why it is sad and deplorable that he misled the other branch of the United States government, that the people of Southern Cameroon, I remember the U.S. Senate officials, whether it is the Congress officials, asked, what can be done? He says the people of Southern Cameroon believe in Camerooners. That is a wrong misjudgment, wrong miscalculation, and wrong analysis in a giving false information to the different arm of the United States government. How can we believe, we are as citizens, we provide, we support, we work here, and we can imagine that we find our people being slaughtered by the terrorist government of La Republique du Cameroun. It is not by mistake that we raise our voice. We raise our voice because we are contributors in this wonderful, strong economy of this planet. But when we see the leadership of the high-profile government officials of these great nations, a person like the Undersecretary for African Affairs misled the branch of the United States government that the people of Southern Cameroon believe in Cameroonness. That is a wrong, miscalculated judgment in the high-profile U.S. representative, giving wrong analysis about the perception of the people of Southern Cameroon vis-a-vis the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Senate. I am here speaking as one of the citizens of Southern Cameroon that are physically here in the wonderful, amazing nations. I am deeply saddened by the continual murdering of our people that is being carried out by the perpetrator of the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. In 1960, this great nation, the United States, voted overwhelmingly with the other nations that stood and recognized the people of Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. So we raise our voice here is to remind the United States the decision that was made in 1960 that were voted at the United Nations.